Hello. Hello, everybody. My name is Dāvis. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Draugian Group company, Printful, and today I'm going to talk about some of the things we learned at Draugian Group over the 13 years. We've been a group, a holding group, and things we kept that kept our startup culture going. So, all right. It's my PDF, apparently. Printful is part of the Draugian Group, so some people who haven't heard about us, we started back in 2004. We took an idea of social network. It was really new in the US. Actually, the first social network was Friendster, so we kind of took that idea and adapted to Latvia, and founded the first social network here in Latvia, and it kind of took off as a viral hit. But we didn't keep with just the social network. Early on, in 2006, we launched the first group company, which was Map-On, which is a GPS car fleet tracking. And over the years, we launched many startup companies. I think there's about 15 or 16 active ones in the group, and I'm only representing just one, Printful. And we started Printful only 4 years ago, but I've been with the group for about 8 years or so. Actually launched multiple startup companies prior to Printful, which is sort of very typical what we do. We try to launch new startup companies every year. All right, let's see if we can get the slides up. And feel free to ask any questions that you might have. Okay, let's see. All right. So here's some of the logos of the companies we launched over the years. Printful, the regional one, Draugiem.lv, the social network still around, Map-On, and some of the other larger ones. I actually helped build Desktime and was involved in a couple of others there as well. So Printful is a company that prints T-shirts and other merchandise for online stores. In other words, we make it really easy for anybody to launch an online store for print products. They don't have to rent their own warehouse, buy expensive equipment, store inventory. Everything's printed on demand. We integrate with a bunch of e-commerce platforms, and we send every package white label, meaning there's no Printful branding whatsoever on the package. It makes it look like it came from the small online store. And we have tens of thousands of customers who start their own small stores on top of Printful. And here's some of the products we do. We do about 250 different products, most of them textiles, apparel, leggings, but also mugs and posters and hats as well. And since we started back in 2013, we have grown exponentially. More than 100% every year. And the last I checked, we were about 325 employees worldwide, most of them in the United States, about 240 of them, and about 85 in 2 offices here in Latvia. Our main office in Riga, and actually we opened up a small branch for Draugian Group in Cēsis earlier this year. We have 2 fulfillment centers in US to get the products faster to the end customer in the United States. That's our core market. More than 80% of stuff that we print goes to the United States. A regional one in Los Angeles, and we opened up one in Charlotte exactly a year ago to send the products faster to East Coast customers, because about 70% of United States population actually lives in Midwest or East Coast. Following that logic, we actually opened an European facility as well here in Riga, Latvia, to send products faster, duty-free, customs-free to the customers in Europe, and expanded in a new market. And we have printed more than 3 million products since we launched, and today is Cyber Monday. Congrats to everyone in e-commerce on that, and I think we should be exceeding about 4 million products printed by end of this month due to the Cyber Monday craziness. And we're the biggest Latvian business in the US by amount how many employees we have. That's in background our fulfillment center in Charlotte, North Carolina. Of course, the Latvian flag in there. So a couple of the things I want to share you what we learned over the years in both Printful and Draugen Group that I think a lot of larger companies would benefit of adapting, and sort of things that have become our culture. One is company lunch. It's actually with the Draugen Group from the very beginning. When we started Draugen, the main goal was to keep the site up. It was viral success, and programmer was just one back there, had to focus on his work. So the founders they did everything they could do so the guy could code 24/7 and keep the site up, including they went to Lido and pack his lunch and bring him to his workstation so he could code endlessly. But it serves sort of a similar purpose right now because back then the developer could focus on the thing he needs to do all the time, is just code really. And employees, if they have to take lunch outside the company, have to think every time where they're gonna go. They're gonna pick a new place probably every so often, who they're gonna go with, what they're gonna pick, how much it's gonna cost, and just the useless decision making in the middle of the workday. And they go outside of work for an hour, and it's just a hassle really. And we take that all away from our employees. Serve healthy food, and they get to mingle with other coworkers, bond, and talk about the work stuff usually, and also private stuff. But so we kept our lunch, and ultimately I think it's better. Other companies in our group that get to network a bit as well. And another thing is showing up by 11. That's the last time you have to show up by work if you work at the Draugen Group. And I think I've worked at Draugen for 8 years. It would be really difficult for me to adapt to another environment. But again, it comes from the founders. None of them were early risers, so they wanted to build a culture where they also themselves want to show up. And one of them is not forcing employees to show up by 9. So they can do some of their errands in the morning. They don't have to approve it by a manager if they have to take their kid and go to the doctor by 11. As long as they stay up by 11, that's fine. And actually now, even a benefit, they still work their 8 hours. Now the benefit, because our core market is the United States, that's more overlap with our Charlotte facility and a little bit maybe with Los Angeles as well. So that's another thing I think big companies should try, not requiring employees to show up by a specific time or at least later. Another thing is choosing your own tools. So for big companies, they usually say, okay, you're going to work on this PC or this Lenovo laptop or this workstation, a desktop computer, and that's it, because that's the thing we approved and that's secure. And if you really talk to your IT guys, they probably would approve a Mac computer to be fine and secure enough as well to be used in their everyday work. And I think it's really important that from day one, when we onboard new employees, we show to them that we really care that they do their best work, and they can probably do their best work if they use the best tools possible. And in many cases, that's the best computer, the platform they're familiar with, such as Mac or Windows. They can choose whatever. So I encourage more companies to give that freedom to their employees if they can, and that's just a good foot to start your relationship with your employees. Another thing is in-house incubator. We always kept innovating and experimenting in our Draugen Group company, and kind of built various different kinds of businesses that are not even related. So like Printful is T-shirts in US, and Map-on is car tracking and trucking companies and things like that. And we encourage entrepreneurship, so that we have people who left Draugen Group and started successful companies, and that's all fine. But we also say to all their employees who want to leave and start their own business, come talk to the founders first, and maybe you can develop this business idea within the Draugen Group. We might give you resources, financial, accounting, marketing, design, etc. Maybe have some equity in a company and stay within a group. And if it doesn't work out, you can still continue to work at Draugen Group. And we had several businesses like that over the years. A couple examples is this is something we just started recently. Map-on works a lot with trucking companies, so interpreting tachograph data was a big thing. So they just kind of spun off one thing from the Map-on and made it their own little startup. Is to buy founders were really passionate about smart home and smart home solutions. They're buying all these gadgets to make really smart homes for themselves, and they decided to make it a company of itself. And in our offices, all those offices around the globe, we use Istanbul products, so we use our own products as well. That kind of leads to the next point, fixing your own problem. Usually the best startup ideas coming from when you fix your own problem and work on ideas where you are the customer, so you ultimately understand what needs to be built. One example, we had many meeting rooms, and couldn't find a good tool to book those rooms. So we built a tool called OneWork, where you can set up meeting rooms and book them and share across the organization. Desk time, we had multiple employees around the globe, and it was kind of difficult to keep track. We need some time tracking tools, so we built desk time, and that was about 6 years ago. And this tool is still around, and we use it every day at the group. But other companies has this philosophy as well. Some very, very successful companies like Amazon, for instance, they released this product very recently, a couple of months ago. It's a tool to help start your customer service phone number in a cloud, basically, and they themselves use it. And they have this philosophy that by commercializing some of the products they use internally, they're going to be not stale, but evolving and really cutting edge in the market. Actually, Amazon Web Services initially was built for Amazon itself because they had trouble scaling Amazon.com, and then they decided, okay, let's externalize this, make it available for everybody. Then the market conditions demand that it's the tool they can use. So by having this, the big companies keep using tools that are relevant and not just only good for them, but also works for everybody and keeps evolving. Actually, Printful idea came around very similarly. We had a store, and we still have a store, Startup Vitamins, where we sell motivational quotes and posters and other products, and we built it in Shopify, and we're growing this store back in 2012, and we wanted to expand in new product categories. We were looking for a good print-on-demand dropshipping company, but we couldn't find one that would meet our quality and speed standards, would have a solid API that we could integrate with, so we decided to build our own product. And actually today, Starter Vitamins still uses Printful API to fulfill all the orders, and it's sort of eat your own dog food kind of thing, use your own product. And that's really has helped us to later scale Printful. And since this lesson comes more from Printful's experience, it's growing on the shoulders of others or trends. So something that helped us at Printful early on, that we launched in a kind of good time, there was all these trends out there that helped us grow. One is the branding of apparel. More and more millennials buy online. They don't want to buy Zara or H&M anymore that much. They want to buy unique apparel. So in many cases, unique apparel is a printed apparel. So that was a big trend. Social media is growing and has been growing rapidly over the years. Now there's people who are famous only to the fact because there's so many people following them on social media, and they have to monetize that audience somehow, and Printful sometimes is an answer. And in general, single solo entrepreneurship is growing. More people are not just 9 to 5 their work day, but they also try to make a little money on the side by maybe riding an Uber or Taxify, or maybe have a small e-commerce store on the side. And in many cases that could be powered by Printful, or things like Shopify, which is a big partner for us. One of the things we benefit that our group, there's some overlapping customers, some overlapping partners, and then we can leverage those relationships as well. And I think we integrated with Shopify at a great time. We had Starter Vitamins that usually was on Shopify, and that was naturally the first integration that Printful integrated with. Back in 2013, they had about 100,000 active stores. Skip forward about 4 years, now they are a public company with $11 billion market cap and about 500,000 active stores. So we were able to scale our partnership, at least 5x over the last 4 years by creating these relationships, and there's about 10 or so similar ones. Demand learning. So that I think is how a lot of big companies stay relevant. When you get larger, it's not just a couple of people who are leading companies' innovation. It's every employee in their roles. So something we do in our onboarding process, we let our employees know, here's some of the blogs and some of the books you could read to stay relevant and current of the topics. We might adapt the book reading list based on the role they are. If you're launching new companies, and within a group that could be a lean startup. If you're a part of our HR department, that could be the book Who, that helps the method for hiring. Almost everybody in our group, at least in Printful when they join, are required to read book RevWork, which by the founders of Basecamp, that talks about the different ways to work. And there's several others that we adapt, and we encourage this book reading, and people stay current and always learning and trying out new things. And that kind of leads to the next point, experimenting, and having a budget for experiments, and being fine that some ideas doesn't work and some of them fail. At least have a budget for that. Have some employees who try to do crazy things. They might not work out. Maybe on just one day a week, like Google does, like at 20% time. Quote from Lauris, one of our founders, and that's sort of philosophy we always had. When hitting a puck against a goal, maybe 1 in 10 businesses really works and take off. Others might die, and that's totally fine. When you grow larger as well, and you have this problem maybe making decisions down the line, and managers is usually who's calling the shots, but it's very difficult then if managing a larger organization to be the best at everything. A lot. I myself try to remind myself this, that we should rely as much as possible on data when making decisions. And so we try to gather data, and everybody who's making decision or have this argument, ideally it's backed up by data. But don't back down, don't get kind of sucked into this that you have to have a perfect data. No, because that might lead to indecision. And even founders of big companies like Amazon has told that really 70% of the data is enough to make a good decision. If you're going to spend a lot of time gathering perfect data, like 90%, you're probably moving too slow. Actually, this is a quote from a good friend of mine, Gustavs. He used to work for the Draugiem Group for several years. Now he works for one of the largest startup companies in Ireland, Intercom, and recently wrote a blog post about very same issue, very, very similar. But again, you don't have to make perfect decisions. They are ideally based on some of the data, but ultimately, momentum is what makes companies great and successful. And kind of the last thing is that, in startup companies, there's so many young people. Just keep having fun. Keep having fun. Have those company events. We have 2 company big events, the Christmas ball, of course, and there's a huge orienteering event in summer where everybody kind of divides in the teams and drives around the Latvia or even the Baltics sometimes. And then we kind of, at Printful, we have a little department budget for department get-togethers and parties. And I think that's really important to keep the culture going and keep developing. And this is a picture from our Los Angeles facility a couple of years back, actually, and around Halloween. So, as a big company, try to keep that startup spirit. I'd like to think that we have kept it over the years, and hopefully that's going to be the best. And that's it for me. Thank you.